Sports gamblers, Tim Donnelly here with another edition of North Carolina Sports Betting 101, and we are talking about one of the innovations that has come upon us in the gambling world recently. Same Game Parlays. That's what they're known as on the DraftKings Sportsbook and the DraftKings Sportsbook app, which is what we use as kind of our example here on North Carolina Sports Gambling 101. On other apps, on other sportsbooks, they have slightly different names, but they are of the same build. Same Game Parlay. Like I said, this is a relatively new innovation because prior to sports gambling apps, this would have been very, very difficult to execute, right? It would have been very, very difficult for a bookie or an in-person sports book to execute the level of math that goes into a same game parlay. So, first things first, if you don't know what a parlay is, you're going to be a little lost during Same Game Parlay. Lucky for you, a previous episode of our Sports Gambling 101 series here has explained parlays. So you can go back into our archives, watch that one, then come back and pick this video up right here where we're talking Same Game Parlays. Now, what are the differences between, now that you're completely caught up and you know what a parlay is, what are the biggest differences between a parlay and a Same Game Parlay? There's two main differences. First of all, one is said right in the name. A same game parlay happens entirely within the same game. A parlay traditionally has one bet from a bunch of different games, right? If it's a 3-leg parlay, you're going to bet, you can bet money line, you can bet spread, you can bet all the different types of bets, one from each game, parlay them together. If all 3 legs hit, you're a winner. A same game parlay takes 3 bets from the same game, at least 3 bets, at least multiple bets from the same game, and puts them into a parlay where they all have to hit. And if they all hit, you're the winner. So maybe it's easier to see a little bit of an example here. I'm here on the DraftKings Sportsbook website. I went to the Minnesota Twins, Arizona Diamondbacks, the time of year that we're filming this. It's baseball season. And I just went straight to the Minnesota Twins at Arizona Diamondbacks game. Starts in about 5 hours from when we record this. And they have this little tab here. It's called Quick SGP. That stands for Same Game Parlay. And it just provides a bunch of different examples of what a same game parlay might be. So let's go ahead and pick one here. How about this? Over and Jose Miranda hits, over and Carlos Correa hits, and Minnesota Twins winning on the money line. Those are all 3 in the same game, right? And then the number for hits for both Miranda and Correa is 1.5. So in order for this bet to hit, same as parlays, you would need to have Jose Miranda hit at least 2 base hits, Carlos Correa to hit at least 2 base hits, and have the Minnesota Twins win the game outright. If that happens, it's a plus 750 bet, which again, we're aware of, but I'll let the computer do the math for us. A $10 bet would pay out $85. That feels almost identical to a regular parlay, with the only difference being it is in the same game. The second difference, right? I said there were 2 differences. The second difference, and we are so lucky that the apps and the websites will do it for us, is a little bit of the math behind the scenes. And this is why it was so difficult for bookies or kind of standalone sports books to handle this in the past, because they're not exactly just combining odds. Right, you can do like a probability equation to figure out games that are happening independent of each other, bets that are happening independent of each other, to find out what the likelihood of those bets happening is. In a same game parlay, it's all intertwined, right? So the example bet that we used, right, if Carlos Correa is on the Twins and you take the over in hits and Minnesota Twins to win on the money line, we can even make it that slightly more simple and just make it a 2-leg same game parlay and remove the Miranda hits. If Carlos Correa hits over 1.5 hits, that in turn makes it more likely that the Minnesota Twins are going to win the game because one of their better players has multiple hits. So there is a prevention that the sports books have that they don't want to completely just add up the odds and give you a massive payday, or else you might be inclined to just say the Twins will be winning after the 7th inning, Twins will be winning after the 8th inning, Twins will be winning after the 9th inning, same game parlay. And if they're all whatever plus 300 to 500, if they're the underdog, combine those three, you're like, that's going to be a massive payday. Well, the sportsbook's going to look at you and say, well, if the Twins are leading after the 7th inning, they're going to be very likely to lead after the 8th inning, and they'll be even more likely to lead after the 9th inning after that. So they're not going to let you add up those odds to some total crazy giant payout. They're going to say, all right, we'll add a little bit of payout for each of those being combined, but not as much as if you were to say, the Twins are going to be winning at the end of the 7th inning. In some other game, the Phillies will be winning after the 7th inning, and some other game, the A's will be winning after the 7th inning, because those are all independent of each other. So when it comes to a same game parlay, this is where I encourage you to trust the app, right? Don't try to be a hero. Don't try to be a human calculator. If you're interested in a same game parlay, the best part about some of these bet slips that show up on the app or on the website is until you hit place bet, no bets are placed. You can build as many parlays as you want, see what the payout would be, then run your cost risk analysis, right? Then you can run is that payout worth the likelihood that I think it's going to happen or not happen. Same game parlays are another way that you can prevent your bet from being over, okay? This is where we get into kind of, well, why would I do that if the legs are going to impact each other's odds and I might not make as much? Well, the opposite is true also, right? If I were to say Carlos Correa under 1.5 hits, Minnesota Twins win on the money line, that payout will be greater because then the Twins have one of their better players not getting multiple hits, yet still winning the game. That's less likely to happen. So you can build it that way. And then on top of that, as I mentioned, it's a way that your bet cannot finish, meaning that's a kind of a double negative. It's a way to make sure your bet lasts the entire game. All right, we talked about over-unders in a previous video, and one of the flaws, or a flaw might not be the right way to describe it. One of the reasons why you might be deterred from betting an over-under, meaning a total game over-under, is you might know whether you win or lose in the first quarter. You might know whether you win or lose in a baseball game in the 3rd inning. And then you have a whole rest of the game where you might not have anything on the line unless you go back and place a live bet. So in this case, Carlos Correa, over 1.5 hits, as we keep coming back to this 2-leg example of a same game parlay, Carlos Correa might have 2 hits in the first 2 innings, right? Twins could bat around. He could get up and hit a single in the first inning, a double in the second inning, and then if that was your only bet, you have the rest of the game to sit around and twiddle your thumbs if you don't have a fandom for the Twins or whoever they're playing. But by adding Minnesota Twins win on the money line to the same game parlay, even if your Carlos Correa hits leg of the parlay is over in the first 2 innings, you've won, you hit it, way to go. Or the reverse happens and under, that's always tough. But if you have the Minnesota Twins on the money line, that's not secured, that's not locked in until the end of the game. So it's a way to maybe build up the entertainment value of a game, right? I talk about this all the time, but responsible gambling is important. We are not encouraging anyone to go out there and throw money away, but you only bet what you can lose. In a lot of ways, I think of it as you might want to bet as much as you think the entertainment value will be added, right? Think of it like a ticket to a movie, right? If you're gonna, and I don't want to get into the price of movies, right? It's going up. But if you buy a ticket to a movie for $10, you're buying $10 worth of entertainment. If you bet on a game $10 and you get $10 worth of entertainment out of that, well, then it's no different than buying a movie. The good news is you might also win money on top of that in addition to your entertainment. So that's why in a lot of these videos, I kind of explain the different ways that different types of bets might increase your entertainment level, maybe even aside from, grinding the numbers or grinding the narratives and trying to make sure you win your bet. If you bet a same game parlay and you're tracking it and you're paying attention, it can make a game that you otherwise wouldn't be excited about significantly more entertaining, which gets you some value like that movie ticket in entertainment alone that you wouldn't get, whether you win or lose the bet, which is a nice way to think about it. And again, only bet what you can afford to lose. So that's the same game parlay. Again, like I started with, it's called other things at other sports books. There's other names for it, but it's the same basic mechanism no matter where you look. It is a multi-leg parlay within one game, within one athletic event, where the odds they get bigger or shorter, right? They get longer or shorter based on how all of the different legs come together. And luckily we don't have to do the math. Trust the bet slip. That's one way to look at it. It's what I do, right? I don't want to think like, oh, I just won $1,200 and it's actually $12 because I don't know how to carry the zero. Let the bet slip do the math, and then you do the cost risk analysis. And that's it for this episode of Sports Betting 101. Here on 99.9 The Fan.